All right, thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. Turning the call over to Sunbelt Commissioner Carl Benson.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the 12 presidents and chancellors of the Sunbelt Conference, thank you for taking the time today to participate in this call as the Sunbelt makes a very important announcement regarding its football membership structure for the future. At this time, I would like to introduce Denise Trouth, President of Texas State University and the President of the Sunbelt Board of Directors, to make an opening statement. President Trouth.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Good afternoon. And on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Sunbelt Conference, its 12 presidents and chancellors, I am pleased to announce today that beginning with the 2018 season, the Sunbelt Conference will be a 10-team football league. With this decision, the current football-only memberships with the University of Idaho and New Mexico State University will expire following the 2017 season. This decision culminates nearly 4 years of strategic planning to bring the Sunbelt Conference to what we believe is one of the most geographically structured conferences in the FBS, 12 total teams in 7 states with 2 distinct divisions that will reduce the travel demands and missed class time of the nearly 4,000 student athletes who participate in 18 sports sponsored by the Sunbelt Conference. This structure will also help build regional rivalries, especially between the universities within the 2 divisions, and allow fans to travel easily to the many great destinations that exist throughout the Sunbelt Conference. From a football standpoint, we believe a 10-team league will allow the SBC to maximize its on-field performance and rise to the top of our 4 peer FBS conferences in the very near future, and one day, very soon, have a team from the SBC play in one of the college football playoff New Year's Day bowl games. We will also now have a serious discussion about whether to conduct a football championship game. And those discussions will take place this spring with coaches and athletic directors, with the decision hopefully determined sometime next fall. I want to conclude by thanking President Carruthers of New Mexico State University and President Stablin of University of Idaho, who have been most cooperative throughout our whole relationship with them. And now I will give this back to Commissioner Carl Benson. Commissioner?
Thank you, President Trouth, and I'd like to introduce Sunbelt Senior Associate Commissioner John McElwain to provide some instructions to the media as we go into the question and answer portion of today's call. John?
All right, thank you very much. It is *1 to ask a question today, *1, and # if you need to remove yourself from the queue. And our first question comes from the line of Dennis Dodd. Dennis?
Hey, hi. I guess this is for the board chairman and Carl. How much did conference championship game deregulation play into this, in that you can obviously go with a championship game with 10 schools?
Dennis, it certainly had a major factor. In the spring of 2013, when football-only memberships were extended to New Mexico State and Idaho, the intent then was to get to 12 teams so that we could conduct a football championship game. And as we have kind of concluded the membership structure with the addition of Coastal Carolina, that got us to 12.
Mm-hmm.
But with the January decision that no longer required 12, it did I think, generate some additional conversation and dialogue and analysis. And at the end of the day, this is a Sunbelt decision that is in the Sunbelt's best interest, and the belief that at this time a 10-team league allows the Sun Belt to, as President Trout said, maximize our future performance.
And am I assuming too much that this game, if it's added, would be on campus?
Again, way too soon to speculate. We'll have those conversations. We've kind of toyed for 2 years now about who's in favor of a championship game, who isn't. But it was always until we got to 12, it was really no real conversation. And again, the Coastal Carolina edition back in August allowed us to get to 12. And now that we know we're going to be a 10 team, we'll be able to drill down and really evaluate the advantages, disadvantages, of a football championship game. But on the other hand, with the two provisions, and I think it's something that we really need to clarify, because I think that there is some general misinformation or just lack of understanding. This NCAA new policy allows for two different options for a conference to conduct a championship game with less than 12 teams. One is to play a full round-robin schedule, and in the case of the Sun Belt with 10 teams, that would mean that we would play a 9-game conference schedule with a champion being established with the two top teams from the division, from that one divisional ranking, or to split the conference into two 5-team divisions and either play 8 conference games or 9 conference games. There's no requirement as to how many conference games you'd play if you divided it into the two divisions. And we've had other conversation in the past about whether an 8-game conference schedule is better than a 9-game conference schedule or vice versa. And I think as we are able to take that question and couple it with how that might work within a football championship game structure, that we would come to some decision, some conclusion. I think it's safe to say that if we were to have a championship game, the earliest would be 2017, but the most likely would be 2018.
Okay.
More than likely, it would be on campus at one of the either one of the divisional champions or the number one champion of the league if we went the round robin route.
And I just make sure real quick. I thought I heard you say in the beginning you are dividing into divisions, or is that yet to be determined?
No, we have, and again, I think that the structure that we have 12 teams, 10 football playing schools, along with University of Texas Arlington, University of Arkansas Little Rock, that don't play football, and that's our 12-team model, and that is what President Trout indicated. That's our strength, is that those 12 universities are divided geographically. And whether we play divisionally in any sport right now, is still somewhat unknown.
Okay.
But the fact that we have 2 schools in Texas, 2 in Arkansas, 2 in Louisiana that are distinct, quote, West, and in the East, the 2 Alabamas, Troy and South Alabama, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Appalachian State in North Carolina, and now Coastal Carolina and South Carolina. That's the model, and that's the footprint. That's the geographic footprint that will allow us to manage all of our sports. And another real key ingredient to that, and this would be a non-football because there's not travel partners, but the travel partner concept, the travel partner scheduling concept. When you look at the 12 basketball playing schools that we have, they are all perfectly fitted for traveling kind of in the same location and in the same direction. And that's where the efficiency of travel, that's where the missed class time comes in, that's where just the overall wear and tear on student athletes will be reduced by the travel partner scheduling model, regardless of whether we play 12 teams, 1 through 12, or split into divisions, depending on the sport.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And as a reminder, it is *1 to ask questions today. Our next questions come from the line of Dave Southhorn from the Idaho Statesman. Dave, go ahead.
Hey, Carl. I know obviously, it seems like the geographic footprint and, going to 10 teams were, primary decisions to not extend Idaho. Were there any other factors that you can talk about, maybe why Idaho kind of wasn't extended more?
Again, we focused on what was in the best interest of the Sun Belt, rather than focusing, on the characteristics or the benefits. And we have great respect for the University of Idaho and New Mexico State, and that the geographic footprint played a huge part in the decision, and consolidating and getting to a structure that again, minimizes just the overall footprint and at the same time maximizing the performance piece. Did we look at past performance? Absolutely. Did we look at the financial parameters and the financial impact of being a 12-team league or a 10-team league in football? And the one thing that we do have to remember is that football revenues that are generated by the Sun Belt are primarily divided within the football membership, and so this was an economic evaluation that 10 teams versus 12 teams from an economic standpoint would be a better financial model as well.
And also, I know initially it was going to be March 10th when this vote was going to take place. What kind of prompted to be moved up a bit and have this decision be today?
President Trouf, would you like to address that?
Yes, it became very apparent that the presidents and chancellors in the conference were unified on the subject of moving forward as a 10-team football league. That sentiment has been evident for some time, and as we came into the new year, our leadership felt that we had amply evaluated this membership structure, and that it was only fair to make this announcement sooner rather than later. I mean, we recognize that New Mexico State University and University of Idaho need to move down the road, and so we decided that now was the time to make this announcement.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dave. And now we're going to go to the line of Troy Schulte from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Troy, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Hey, Carl, how are you?
Very well. Good afternoon, Troy.
Good. Hey, with the football championship game, that seems like that's been a topic every spring and every July, for the last 3 or 4 years or so. I mean, do you feel like you guys have a pretty good idea of the opinion of each school, in terms of if you guys want to have it or not? Or do you still feel like there's still kind of conversations that need to be done, or are you guys still in the dark on who wants one and who doesn't want one?
Well, we've never taken an actual vote. We've tried to gauge those that are maybe strong on one side versus the other. The one thing too that I think is important is that there will be 3 new football coaches around the table for the first time this spring. Actually 4 when you count Coastal Carolina. And so we really want to start from scratch. And there's always a list of the advantages, disadvantages of whether to conduct a football championship game. And right now, of the 10 FBS conferences, 8 of those conferences, somewhere down the path have elected to conduct a football championship game. And the Sun Belt and the Big 12 are the only 2 of the 10 that are not conducting a championship game. And prior to this new legislation regarding the 12 teams, neither of us were in a position to actually conduct a championship game. So I think this will bring it to a head and allow us, rather than to talk and speculate about if we do have a championship game, now I think we can really hone in on, is this in the best interest of the Sun Belt? And I think that when you look at our peer conferences, and again, of the 10 FBS conferences, they're obviously divided into the Autonomy 5 and the 5 others with the Sun Belt and Conference USA and the American and the Mountain West and the Mid-American. And right now the Sun Belt is the one in our peers that do not have a championship game, and some of the same arguments that have been had over the course of the first 2 years of the CFP, in regards to whether the Big 12 was advantaged or disadvantaged by not having a championship game. Those same arguments and that same debate will occur in terms of the quote Group of 5. The highest ranked champion gets that great spot in one of the New Year's Day games, and that's what we'll be playing for. And right now, with our 4 peer conferences playing games, is the Sun Belt disadvantaged when it comes to maximizing our champion in an evaluation assessment by that same football committee that selects the 4 teams to play in the semifinals. That group will be evaluating the champions of the 5 conferences.
Troy, and as a reminder, it is *1 to ask a question to get in the queue. We're going to go to the line of Jason Groves from the Las Cruces Sun News up next. Jason, if you are ready, please go ahead.
Yeah, Carl, can you talk about, since New Mexico State and Idaho made their presentation a couple weeks ago, what happened since then to move this forward, without going to a vote in a couple of weeks here?
I think President Trout explained it well, that as we went into those presentations 2+ weeks ago, we wanted to give both the University of Idaho and New Mexico State an opportunity to make their case. It's not as if we aren't aware of what they have in terms of their characteristics, both from an athletic standpoint and from a university standpoint, and again, they are both highly regarded by the rest of the Sun Belt membership. But I think that once those presentations were conducted and completed, the executive committee of the Sun Belt Conference, which is led by President Trout, along with Tim Hudson, the chancellor at Arkansas State, Nick Bruno, the president at the University of Louisiana Monroe, and Joel Anderson, the chancellor at the University of Arkansas Little Rock, conducted a call after the presentations and exchanged information, shared notes. The 4 of them had conversation with some of their peers around the league to get kind of what the temperature was. And as President Trout indicated, at that time it did not appear that the votes were there, so to speak, to extend. And then a plan was developed last week to go forward in this manner and to be able to make this decision and this announcement, and again to really focus on going forward as the Sun Belt. I think today is a big day for the Sun Belt. When you look at what we have gone through, since the spring of 2012 and the departures of 5 universities, we've added 6 to get us to that 12 number. And when you look at the universities that we've added to complement the ones that were here in 2012, we think we've developed and established a core of universities, both from an academic standpoint and an athletic that really now defines the Sun Belt. And I applaud the presidents and chancellors for their being willing to to move forward and make these decisions. I appreciate the confidence that they had in me to lead them to this point, and I really believe that when you look at what we've accomplished in the last 4 years, to be here now today making this announcement is a real testament to I think the leadership of the Sun Belt in terms of our presidents and chancellors and our athletic directors.
But there was no actual vote. They didn't vote. They just kind of discussed it and came to this determination to move forward like this.
That is correct. There were no votes taken, and it was a matter of being able to to share information and to compare notes, and that's not uncommon with boards, and we operate as a board of directors, and that is not an uncommon way to kind of reach consensus, so to speak.
Thanks, Carl.
You bet, Jason.
All right, thank you, Jason. We're going to go to the line of Michael Sean Duggar next from the Moscow Daily News.
Carl, how much did performance play a role in the decisions of the presidents on whether to extend the contracts, specifically speaking on Idaho?
Well, again, it was all we created a list of factors that would be used to conduct the evaluation. We presented those to both the University of Idaho and New Mexico State back before Christmas. A list of I think it was eight items that would be used to kind of as a guide to guide us through the evaluation. And I think the one thing that also is important to note and just to remind people is that in the spring of 2013, when we entered into this agreement with New Mexico State and Idaho, it was a 4-year agreement with a 2-year look-in, and it was intended to provide all parties, both universities along with the Sun Belt, to assess where we were after 2 years, and to make the determination then whether it was something that would continue. And we've stated this before, and yet again, I think it's also important to note is that the environment that existed in the spring of 2013, one being the requirement that you needed to get to 12 teams, that drove the initial decision to add New Mexico State and Idaho. And those of you that were covering the Sun Belt at that time, on that day in April of 2013, it was a big day on that day for the Sun Belt. Earlier in the morning, we announced that Georgia Southern would be joining the Sun Belt. Later that afternoon, I was in Boone, North Carolina, and made the announcement with Appalachian State that they would join the Sun Belt. And later on in the afternoon, via conference call, we made the announcement that Idaho and New Mexico State would join the Sun Belt, and that got us to this 12 teams. The geographic considerations that have always been important to the Sun Belt and this geographic footprint were in place on that afternoon in April of 2013. Unfortunately, 30 days later, Western Kentucky elected to depart the Sun Belt, the last of the 5 to depart the Sun Belt, and that put us back in a structure that required and needed another member, and we were very deliberate from that point on to see who that replacement team was going to be, and that there were several institutions under consideration, and in late August, the decision to add Coastal Carolina to really be kind of 2 years post the departure of Western Kentucky, the actual replacement team for Western Kentucky that got us back to that 12. The other piece that needs to be, we were talking earlier about the economics and the importance of economics and how important that is in today's intercollegiate athletic world, that on that day in April 2013, the Group of Five conferences had devised a revenue distribution plan shortly after the CFP had created the revenue split that would come to the Group of Five under the new CFP revenue plan. And at that time, the five commissioners elected to establish a plan that called for each conference would receive up to $12 million based on $1 million per university. So a 12-team league would get $12 million. A 10-team league would get $10 million. And that drove the decision. When I recommended in April New Mexico State and Idaho to be football-only members, that was the information that I took to our presidents and chancellors, that Idaho and New Mexico State would contribute $1 million because they were already FBS, and they would come in as 12, and that would get us to the kind of the maximum base number on the 12s, on the $12 million per school. Within a few months after that, some of my commissioner colleagues decided that they wanted to change that formula, and it went from $12 million to $10 million. And so within 3 or 4 months, the base became $10 million rather than 12, shifted money into the performance pool of monies. And so really when you look at two of the main reasons in April of 2013 that we focused on Idaho and New Mexico State, neither of those are in place today. So I think that we have to be candid with that kind of that logic and that that determination.
So would something like performance, maybe like if Idaho went to back-to-back bowl games, would that have been enough, you think, to outweigh some of those other factors?
I think it absolutely would have been a factor had there been greater on-field success by either university, but it didn't happen, and what we had the decision we had to make was not based on what might happen in the future. It's what the current structure is, and how best to position the Sun Belt in this quest to have the highest ranked champion. And I think that those of you that follow the formula that is used to rank the conferences, it's based on six computers. They're the 6 computers that were used during the BCS days, and we still use those 6 computer averages to compile the conference rankings, and that each university is assessed a computer ranking that is a average of those 6. And just like the basketball RPI, the teams at the top, their computer averages are impacted by the computer averages of those teams in the bottom half of the league. So the more teams that you have with higher computer rankings, the better average you have, and the better the teams are within the group of within the conference. So I mean, it is a financial game, and we are ranked by conference. In the last 2 years, the Sun Belt has been the number 5 ranked conference. And our goal is certainly not to remain in the number 5 spot. There's great financial incentive to move up the computer rankings, and we believe that a 10-team league will give us a much better chance to move up the rankings, and to our aspiration is to be the top ranked conference and to have the highest ranked champion. like the American did this past year, like the Mountain West did, in year one of the CFP. That's our goal, and this is what drove this decision today.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, and thank you very much. Moving along now, we're going to go to the line of Doug Robertson from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Doug, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Hey, Carl. Just two quick questions for you. Number one, when will the conference football schedule be released now? And number two, do you have any concerns now that you will be a 10-team league in 2018 of losing any members and going down to 9 and having everything kind of all messed up again in terms of either divisions or a schedule format?
Well, as far as the 2016 schedule, we expect to release that within the next 48 hours. We've been working in close concert with ESPN to finalize the ESPN schedule of games, and we're closing in on that, and we do expect an announcement on Thursday. As for your second question, we believe that the conference, that the Sun Belt, is at a stable level, and that one of great stability right now and solidarity. We believe that our membership is recognizing the value of the Sun Belt, that our bowl opportunities are to the point where we're satisfying our membership there. The financial piece with the CFP, the increase in the CFP, and hopefully as we move up the CFP rankings, will allow us to maximize revenues along that line. Despite the lack of revenue that comes from our ESPN agreement, we believe that the exposure that we have received from ESPN and the addition of the ESPN3 component that really has allowed every Sun Belt football game to be viewed, nationally, internationally by fans, has provided us a very sound television package that again, when we look at our peer conferences and compare ourselves to the peer conferences, we believe very strongly that we don't have to take a back seat to any of our peer conferences, and that again, over the past 4 years, we've built a conference that our membership values and believes strongly in. We also believe that in light of the new 12-team policy in terms of a championship game, even if there was movement, and hypothetically everyone is focusing on, does the Big 12 add 2 teams, and if they do, what are those 2 teams? Where do they come from? What impact might that have on conferences in our group of 5? And unlike before, when teams had to get back to 12, I don't believe that there's that same desire by our peer conferences to necessarily, get back to 12. And so I feel as confident and comfortable as I have in the past 4 years. Really have reached a level of stability in the Sun Belt. We obviously will always keep our eyes open and our ears open and tackle evidence for what's happening. The other thing that we've found out is that the Sun Belt has developed itself, has valued itself.
I hope so.
That to the point where there are several schools that I'm sure when they heard this announcement today will be calling us later today, inquiring about whether we have any interest or desire to get to 12 teams. And our answer is, we appreciate your interest in the Sun Belt, but we are really, really happy right where we are. But there are schools out there that are very interested, and I think that we have shown a success, or we have shown that schools from the FCS, can be very, very successful in a quick manner by joining the Sun Belt. Appalachian State and Georgia Southern obviously the two most recent that have demonstrated that when teams join the Sun Belt, they take advantage of our assets and get better. So I think that we send a strong message today that the Sun Belt is solid and stable and really together in terms of being able to now move to the future.
All right, thank you, Doug. We're going to move on now to Matt Brown with SB Nation. Matt, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Well, actually, you literally just answered my question. I was about to ask if there would be any potential interest in moving to 12, given the proliferation of FCS programs in the Sun Belt footprint that I know are interested, but you just answered that, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you, Matt. And that will conclude our call today. If you do have any questions or needs, please feel free to contact us here at the Sun Belt Conference office.